So, how did a god who literally lives on the fringes of society become so central for a generation that's always online? In a world of fleeting trends, 15-second performances, and just constant digital noise, there's this ancient ash smeared deity making a huge comeback. We're talking about Shiva. Yeah, forget the influencers for a second. It really seems like Gen Z has found its ultimate icon of authenticity in one of the oldest, most complex figures in spirituality. So, how did a god who literally lives on the fringes of society become so central for a generation that's always online? Let's break it down. So, at the heart of this, you've got this epic clash of worlds. On one side, there's the digital age, right? It's all about constant performance for likes, that endless hunt for validation through filters, and the anxiety that comes from doom scrolling. But then, on the other side, you have the Shiva ethos, which offers this powerful alternative: radical authenticity, a deep inner stillness that noise just can't touch, and unconditional acceptance. This is the core tension we're going to explore. A generation searching for something real in a world that, let's be honest, often feels totally curated and fake. So, how exactly does Shiva's whole vibe offer an alternative? Well, let's start with what might be his biggest draw. He is the ultimate antidote to the pressure of creating that perfect online self. I mean, think about it. Most divine figures are decked out in gold and jewels. Shiva? He sits on a cold rock covered in ash. He doesn't chase wealth or approval or social standing. He hangs out in cremation grounds and deep forests. For a generation that grew up trying to figure out their identity through algorithms, Shiva's absolute refusal to be part of that whole performance game, well, it feels nothing short of revolutionary. He basically teaches that true influence comes from being aligned with yourself, not from external validation. He doesn't need to be admired. He just is. Author Amish Tripathi, who's done so much to bring Shiva into the modern conversation, just nails this paradox. On one hand, Shiva has this incredible, mind-blowing power. He's the destroyer, right? The most potent force in the universe. You're definitely in awe of that. But he's also a dancer, a lover, someone who consumes bong, which makes him so relatable and, like Tripathi says, lovable. It's that exact mix of immense power and total approachability that really connects with people. And you can see this in action right here. Pop culture, especially books like the Shiva trilogy, has totally transformed him from some distant deity into a charismatic, vulnerable, and ultimately human hero. This cover, showing Shiva with his back to us, like a lone warrior with battle scars, it doesn't present him as some perfect god. It presents him as a contemporary hero facing his own problems. And it's that kind of reimagining that has made his ancient wisdom feel so immediate and so accessible today. And that idea of authenticity, it leads us right into our next point. Because beyond just identity, Shiva is really emerging as a powerful guide for mental well-being in an age just full of anxiety. Just think about it for a second. Gen Z really brought the conversation about mental health to the forefront, and for millions, it's a daily reality. Sensory overload, emotional burnout, that constant digital exposure, these aren't just buzzwords, right? They're actual survival challenges. So where do you turn when you need tools to navigate all of that? And this is where Shiva, as the Adiyogi, the very first yogi, comes in. That iconic meditative pose you see everywhere, it isn't about escapism or just checking out. It represents a mastery over noise, both the noise in your head and the noise outside. In a world where we literally learn to swipe before we can write, Shiva symbolizes the permission to just disconnect, to sit with your own discomfort and find a radical inner quiet without feeling guilty about it. He offers ancient survival tools for a very, very modern crisis. Okay, this next part is absolutely fascinating. Shiva's relevance today also comes from how he completely shatters our traditional rigid ideas about power, about strength, and especially about masculinity. Think about the traditional models of masculinity for a second. They're often built on suppressing emotion, on dominance, on refusing to show any vulnerability. For a generation that's actively exploring more fluid ideas of gender and what it means to be human, that old model just feels, well, outdated. And Shiva offers a powerful and strikingly modern alternative. I mean, just look at this breakdown. On one hand, he is fierce enough to destroy the entire universe. But on the other, he's described as incredibly tender in his love. He grieves openly, he withdraws when he's overwhelmed. He embodies power without aggression. That is the ultimate restraint. And most profoundly, in his form as Ardhani Narishwara, that half male, half female form, he literally merges masculine and feminine energies into one balanced whole. For anyone trying to find an identity beyond society's rigid boxes, this kind of emotional range is incredibly relevant. Now, if there's one aspect that truly makes Shiva a cool god, it's this one. In a world that is so full of gatekeepers and moral hierarchies, Shiva's world has no velvet rope. Everybody is on the guest list. This comment from a Reddit user just captures the feeling perfectly. Shiva's crew includes ghosts, demons, animals, outcasts, everyone. That feeling of unconditional acceptance, especially if you've ever felt like an outsider for any reason, is such a profound draw. Devotion to him isn't about being pure or perfect. It's just about being sincere. Exactly. And the mythologist Dovdit Patanaik explains the philosophy behind it so clearly. While other systems might have a long list of rules or expect you to change before you can even approach, Shiva's invitation is simple. Just come. He doesn't make demands. He doesn't insist on rigid rituals. This is spirituality without fear. And that is deeply, deeply resonant today. Okay, finally, let's talk about Shiva's most famous and maybe most misunderstood role, the destroyer. For modern youth, this whole concept is being reframed in a really powerful and necessary way. When you hear the word destruction, it's easy to think of negativity or violence. But honestly, for a generation that inherited huge ecological challenges and outdated social systems, destruction can feel necessary. The Tandava, which is Shiva's cosmic dance, isn't about destroying life, it's about destroying stagnation. It's the energy you need to tear down the old walls of dogma and ego so that transformation and renewal can happen. It confirms what so many of us feel instinctively, that real growth often has to begin with an ending. So, what does this all boil down to? Shiva isn't some dusty figure from a history book. He is a living, breathing framework for authenticity. For a generation shaped by uncertainty and a deep need for emotional honesty, he provides a language for rage without cruelty, for rebellion without nihilism, and for power without domination. And in a world that is always pressuring us to be becoming something else, he offers the most radical lesson of all, the power of simply being. Har Har Mahadev, there's a saying, you cannot worship Shiva, but you may join the gang. So are you part of the Shiva gang? Let us know in the comments how this ultimate outlaw inspires you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.